My life was stable, my marriage seemed solid, and everything felt like it was in place. Until one fateful night, a simple notification on my wife's phone shattered everything I thought I knew. For 17 years, I've been married to Jessica. We don't have any children together, but Jessica has two daughters from her previous marriage, now 28 and 23, whom I helped raise. To me, our marriage seemed solid, with only minor hiccups here and there. We always communicated openly about everything: work, sex, our feelings, you name it. Many evenings we'd just sit on the couch and discuss life and philosophy. I always thought we had a deep connection and a pretty fulfilling sex life. Both of us stay in good shape and live a healthy lifestyle. I work in the medical field and have been pulling a lot of overtime lately due to the current demands. Jessica, a legal consultant, has been working from home for the past 5 months, making things feel a bit distant, but we still enjoyed our days off together. Last night, I was changing the filter on our Dyson fan in the bedroom. I asked Jessica if I could use her phone to update the app since my phone was charging by the front door. When I picked up her phone, I noticed she had set up a pattern unlock. That struck me as odd, but I let it slide. As I was navigating to the app, a Snapchat notification popped up. My heart sank when I read the preview. "I'll bring the special toy." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. Jessica noticed me sitting there, staring at the fan, and asked what was wrong. Jessica has a quarterly out-of-town meeting that takes her 2 states away for 5 days each time. This message was clearly about her upcoming trip on Monday. I've read countless stories of people in similar situations, but I never thought I'd be living one myself, sitting there on my bedroom floor, feeling utterly shattered. I managed to compose myself and muttered something about checking the fan's connection. Jessica had logged into Facebook on my Chromebook the day before, so I decided to take a week's vacation on short notice. My supervisor, a really understanding woman, agreed when I explained what might be going on. I knew I needed time to figure this out. I spent the entire night going through her messages. This morning, she left for the office, and I made sure her Google location history was on and Find My Phone was active. My suspicion was through the roof, and I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. She has no idea I saw that message. I logged into her messaging system under her number and name. There were over 15,000 messages dating back to February of last year. Messages, memes, flirty pictures, and even some explicit ones. About 3 months ago, she stopped texting him this way and switched to Snapchat for its discretion. I am completely clueless about social media. I found out you can't log into Snapchat through Facebook. But all you need is an email and password, and she had used this Chromebook to do that. Just 3 nights ago, she was lying next to me in bed, rubbing my back while I fell asleep, and she was messaging and sexting him. He's a younger guy from her office, married with 3 young children. I've met him twice and even shook his hand. I'm wandering our custom-built house, feeling lost and numb. The rage I do feel is intense. I logged into her Snapchat, and there it all was. I called my best friend, who has been through 3 divorces. Do not get me started on his terrible choice in partners. He recommended a ruthless lawyer. I plan to record and save everything. There are pictures of them having sex. I am sure her phone or his has videos. I desperately want this to be a nightmare. She has said awful things about me to him. She has shared my insecurities. She has told him, "I love you." There are no long-term plans between them, which makes it seem purely sexual. It almost makes it better, but it also makes it so much worse. It feels like she is throwing away our life for this fling. She knows infidelity is an absolute deal-breaker for me. When Jessica leaves for her meetings, our usual routine is for me to take her to the airport and give her a long goodbye. I cannot even think about what I have to do now. My friend says to print out everything and see if I can recover more from Snapchat. Apparently, I cannot unless I have her phone. Today, I am seeing the lawyer. I am paying a ridiculous fee to get an immediate appointment. I want to start the process and hopefully get a solid plan of action. I really want to book a flight and catch Jessica at her hotel in the act. I managed to gain access to her hotel bookings and listed myself as an emergency contact so I can get a room key without alerting her. My plan is to log into the messaging apps when I arrive in town and watch it unfold in real time. Ideally, I'd have the divorce papers ready to hand her, but instead, I'll settle for handing over a stack of printouts. It's a 600-page PDF. His wife accepted my friend request on Facebook. I am contemplating sending her everything right now. I am furious. I do not want to lose any leverage. On Monday afternoon, I'll fly there, log in and see their conversations, get a key to her room, and leave the package with my wedding ring. I'll sit in the bar and watch my phone blow up. I plan to call the affair partner and tell him to meet me in the lobby and to bring Jessica down. Then I will inform him that a similar package has been sent to his home addressed to his wife, and that I will hit send on a Facebook message as I tell him. It feels petty and weak, but I am boiling with anger. This morning, all I could do was give her a peck on the cheek goodbye. I cannot stand to look her in the eye. I have to survive the weekend somehow. Is my spiteful, hate-fueled plan worth it? I just want to inflict emotional pain on her. I feel utterly destroyed and emasculated. I will not entertain any apologies. Cheating is unforgivable to me. It takes so many deliberate steps to cheat on someone, and every single one of those steps could have been stopped before the act was complete. Then it is done. Should I confront her tonight, or catch her red-handed? I am seriously considering never using social media again, and only being with a partner who shares my outlook moving forward. I have a meeting with the lawyer in 90 minutes. Update: I met with the lawyer. She was kind and surprisingly compassionate. She told me her job is to represent me in my future, and my job is to tell her the complete truth and not make her job harder. I printed the file out. It cost $534 for color because I wanted the pictures to be clear. Shout out to Chris at the print shop for not making a scene when the nudes started coming out. He asked what it was all about, so I told him. He was taken aback but shook my hand and said sorry. I went home and crashed for about 3 hours, and Jessica came home around 7:30 p.m. as usual. The lawyer advised against any dramatic confrontation in a hotel bar. She said it would look crazy and unbecoming. So, sorry to those wanting high drama. She is right, ultimately. There are 2 routes to take with divorce: contested or uncontested. I would have to notify Jessica that I have retained counsel, and to proceed, Jessica would either contest the divorce or we would go through mediation and file from there. Jessica came home 2 hours ago. I asked her if there was anything she wanted to talk about. She said no, just the election. She then asked what was bothering me. I wanted to cry, but I was all cried out. I asked her why she had a remote control vibrator in her luggage. The look on her face was more telling than anything. She looked panicked and pale, breathing faster and sweating. I asked why she had something like that, and who had the code and the app to control it. She stammered, and the tears began. I pulled out my 3 file folders worth of text exchanges and asked if the affair partner's wife would have it. She cried and pleaded to explain. I said she had 5 minutes. Of course she could not. I told her what my attorney advised me to tell her. I also told her to leave. She screamed that it was her house too. I calmly told her that might be, but I would notify everyone about her affair and betrayal. Even the girls will know. Or she can leave now and find other living arrangements. She will be at her work conference for a week anyway. She was speechless. I calmly pulled up Facebook and showed her the affair partner's wife. I asked if she wanted me to tell her or if she would do it right now. Tears and pleading with, "I love you," and "it was not supposed to go this far." Then my favorite, "You cannot do this." I said, "Well, it looks like I am doing it," as I sent the affair partner's wife a message with the file of their escapades. I prefaced it with apologies and a brief explanation. I have not heard back from her. I leafed through the stacks of paper and started reading random excerpts out loud to Jessica. I just wish we could spend the day attached to each other, just you inside of me. You feel so much more intense than any other woman I have ever been with. Jessica is still sobbing and begging to talk about us. She insists our marriage can survive her mistake. I told her I would never forgive her. Her word is worthless, and she destroyed the last 17 years. I plan to inform everyone about her choice to end our marriage by cheating. I have a therapy appointment scheduled for Tuesday. I feel an intense mix of elation, shaking, and deep sorrow. Sometimes I just want to die. The house is eerily quiet except for her crying and moaning. I told her not to come back after her trip. Right now, I am sending friend requests and trying to get everyone on my side. I will share the information with everyone that way. I will wait until morning to call her daughters. I raised them from when they were 11 and 6. Now they are 28 and 23, and I do not know how to tell them or handle the situation. Update: I have received almost 1,000 requests for an update on my painful, hate-filled life. My new therapist suggested I go ahead and share, saying it might help me recenter and focus. To those pointing out that is not how Snapchat works, you are right. She had WhatsApp running in the background. I do not really care. I saw it. Thanks again to Dyson for their app and the fantastic fan I got from my brother-in-law for Christmas. Here is some deeper background to provide perspective on why I feel the way I do. I went to college in Las Vegas in the mid-90s, graduating in 1999. I had a blast there and got around. During that time, I decided never to marry, thinking it was an outdated concept that removed your agency. I definitely did not want children. After graduating with a degree in nursing, I quickly excelled in cardiovascular intensive care. I moved back home to Texas in 2001 and pursued a master's degree to become an advanced practice RN nurse practitioner, specializing in cardiovascular surgery. While achieving this, I decided to pursue medical school and adjusted my coursework to meet the requirements. That is when I met my soon-to-be ex-wife, Jessica. She was a short, chubby, red-headed firecracker, what kids today might call thick. We met during a medical emergency. The attraction and our dating were intense. We were saying I love you within 3 months. Jessica was a mother of 2, remember I wanted to be child-free, who had been divorced for about 2 years. She was getting out of an on-again, off-again relationship when we met. We dated for about 2 years, and she gradually introduced me to her daughters, who were then 11 and 6. One night, she gave me a heartfelt but pragmatic talk about us, where we stood, and what she needed and expected from me or any other partner. Essentially, she said it was time to either get married or move on. Although I was still pretty anti-marriage, she respected that. She gave me a chance to think about us and our future. She made a good point that we were already living together, 8 months, and had each other as emergency contacts. She joked that all we were missing was being on each other's insurance. It was an honest conversation, and we agreed to continue for a bit longer, but I ultimately needed to make the decision. 2 weeks later, I received an acceptance letter to a medical school about 2 hours away. I was both ecstatic and crushed. I had just turned 26 and was about to achieve a huge life goal. Then I realized I would never see her or the girls. My self-doubt got the better of me. Being a medical student, then a resident, and then a fellow would be a roughly 7-year process. During that time, I could not make the money to support the lifestyle we had grown accustomed to. I thought about 7 years of loans, debt, and work, and losing her. So I declined and switched back to a master's in nursing administration. We got married in July of 2003. It was a small personal ceremony with just close family and friends. While my parents adore the girls, rightly so, they have always been standoffish with Jessica. On Monday, when I told my parents what was happening, and that there was a real possibility the girls might not be as prevalent in their lives, they admitted they always felt Jessica was damaged goods, having been married before, and that she forced me to compromise. That really hit home, and to a certain extent, they were right. After graduating, I knew I didn't want to climb the management ladder. I thrive in hands-on patient care. The hospital where I worked offered a certification in ECMO and a perfusionist credential. It was a tough program to get into, but I succeeded. For the past 11 years, I've been deeply involved in ECMO, facing both incredible challenges and heart-wrenching moments. 5 years ago, Jessica decided that working as a floor nurse was no longer for her. She wanted a stable 9-to-5 job without the stress of patient care. Through a friend, she landed a position at a legal consultancy that handles medical legal cases. Her job involves abstracting data from patient charts and presenting it as needed. That sets the stage. On Saturday morning, 2 days after D-Day, I barely slept, tormented by dark thoughts about my future and life. I imagined scenarios of death and violence toward them and myself. I was in the kitchen making breakfast, eggs and toast, when Jessica walked in looking groggy. She asked if I would make her some. I threw it in the trash right in front of her. Then I cranked up my record player and blasted music from my youth at an uncomfortable volume to avoid talking to her. Real mature, I know. I started reading through the printout in chronological order, something I do and do not recommend. By the afternoon, I switched from punk rock to melancholic breakup songs. Jessica approached me again, this time almost indignant. and asked what purpose notifying the affair partner's wife served. I stared at her, dumbfounded, and told her that at least the affair partner's wife deserved the chance to make an informed decision about her future, unlike what Jessica did to me. I guess my message to the affair partner's wife was received, and things were not good for him. Jessica sat down on the couch, tearing up and sobbing. I told her I was cried out, or more correctly, I was so numb that I would cry later when I was done doing what needed to be done. She asked timidly, all indignation and bravado gone from her voice, what else I had to do. I told her I planned to ruin her life and give her the pain I have now. I told her that if she had any respect or love for me, she would open her phone and show me everything. She refused, saying it didn't matter and that all I would do is hold it against her. I said there was a part of me that wanted to know everything. She refused and went to the guest bedroom. I found her HR new hire paperwork from her company. They have a corporate compliance line, so I called and left a detailed message. Jessica and her affair partner had discussed client information, including protected health information, through an unsecured, non-approved messaging system. I also informed them that she was his acting supervisor on 2 projects during the time that corresponded with their sexually inappropriate messages. Lastly, I mentioned that they both used their company-subsidized phones to transmit pornographic materials, pics, sexting, videos. That was a big no-no as well. My whole life, I've seen myself as a peaceful and rational man. This has shattered that part of me. I don't know where all this anger is coming from, and I am somewhat worried. Will it stop? I know that to get over this, I will have to accept her apology and forgive her for her mistakes. I just don't know if I am capable, and it worries me. That evening, I continued notifying family and friends of the situation and her actions. I called a physician friend and requested a favor for a checkup and an STD test. He had questions I answered. My eyes got heavy around 8 p.m. Sunday, 3 days after D-Day. I decided to drive to see the girls. They live about 3 hours away. The youngest is still in college for another semester, maybe longer thanks to 2020. I have been having extreme feelings about them since this began. I have formed a respectful, friendly relationship with them, but not much of a fatherly one. The oldest, especially. We are cordial, but there is always that "you're not my dad" vibe between us. The youngest, not so much, but when they are together, it gets more prevalent. I left early Sunday around 5 a.m. and arrived at their condo. Their father pays for it. Just after 8:45. I brought kolaches and good coffee for them. They were immediately worried about their mother before I said anything. I told them point blank the situation and that their mother would probably be moving in the next 3 to 6 months. It was best to do and say this in person. I told them everything. They were disappointed in her. I then told them that I wasn't there to get them to take a side, but they were adults in a special circumstance within our relationship. And if they decided they didn't want to interact or have a relationship with me, that was okay. I would be somewhat let down but also relieved. I told them, however, that our relationship or lack thereof should not interfere with their grandparents, my parents. They both agreed that they would definitely like to keep in touch with the grandparents. I left around 11 and headed home. I stopped at my best friend's house and cried a little. I had essentially helped raise them as best I could. Their father was absentee most of their childhood and started another family 6 hours away. My best friend decided that I had drunk enough over the past 72 hours and needed to sleep. I crashed at his place that night. I noticed Jessica had been blowing up my phone after I left the girls' place. Oh well, I was too tired and in too dark a place to care. Monday, 4 days after D-Day. I arrived home around 8 and noticed Jessica's Porsche was still there. For a moment, I thought she might have Ubered or taken a ride to the airport. No, she hadn't. She was up and had breakfast made. She asked me to sit down and eat with her. I did. She asked how it tasted. I told her it tasted like static. I told her I've had a hard time tasting and feeling anything other than bitterness and anger for the past 5 days. She had called in sick at work and did not leave for her quarterly meeting. She tried to start talking about how worried she was for me and that she loved me so much. She had gotten a call from her oldest yesterday around noon, and they were deeply disturbed by her behavior. I laughed. It was not a funny laugh. It had a manic kind of feel to it and took me aback. I said, "Oh, you love me so much you have a 1.5 year affair behind my back. You love me so much you fuck some other married man. You love me so much you threw away nearly half of my life because she had never given me a reason why she did it. I told her that, and it made it so much worse. I went to the liquor cabinet and pulled out the bottle. The bottle was an 18-year Glenfiddich that my grandfather bought for us when we got married. It has been our tradition to have a small sip on our anniversary night and remember that things get better with time and patience. I chugged the remainder of it. About a third of the bottle was left. I said, sorry I didn't offer her any because she did not deserve it. I went to the bedroom and began pulling all the pictures off the wall that had us or her in them. I placed them on the kitchen table. She had left. My attorney, or rather her paralegal, called to notify me the petition for divorce was ready, and I needed to sign off on it before it could be filed, and Jessica would be served within 10 business days. I read it quickly, while very buzzed on premium scotch. E-signed and pressed send. I also got a message from the affair partner's wife. She reluctantly thanked me for this horrible but good revelation. She declined to speak with me, but wanted to message me to tell me. She found texts and videos with other women besides my soon-to-be ex-wife. She kicked him out and was going to an attorney soon. They live in California. He's screwed. I proceeded to listen to music and have a few more drinks. I fell asleep around 4 in the afternoon. I heard Jessica come home around 10. She saw the pile of pictures and memorabilia that once symbolized us. She began sobbing and pleading for us to talk. I only had one question. Why? She kept saying she didn't know. I called her names I never thought I would, reminding her how many choices she made to even send that first message. It was she who set this in motion. Fueled by alcohol, I let my tongue loose. I laughed at her, stripping off my clothes, and said, "You threw away this," gesturing to my body. I know I'll get flack for this, but I'm 6'4" and weigh 200 pounds. Up until last week, I was still jogging and lifting weights regularly, for some flabby, pathetic guy who could never satisfy you. I stormed off to my room and took a long, hot shower. When I got out, she was lying on the bed naked, candles lit, begging me to make love to her. I turned on my camera and told her to repeat what she said, thanks to those who suggested recording. My body betrayed me, and despite my anger, I went through with it. I was rough and made her uncomfortable, demanding things I knew would humiliate her. I wanted her to beg for it. I recorded everything. Afterward, I was overwhelmed with mixed emotions. I love her, yet I am indifferent to her. I hate her, yet she means nothing to me. I want her, yet the thought of us is painful. We fell asleep together. I woke up hungover and couldn't stand the sight of myself in the mirror. Tuesday, 5 days after D-Day. My therapy session lasted 2.5 hours. Unbeknownst to me, Jessica had followed me and demanded to know what I was doing. I told her loudly and tearfully that I was seeking help for the emotional trauma of realizing I had wasted my life on someone who couldn't even explain why she cheated. My new therapist witnessed most of the exchange. I called her vile names and told her I wished she were dead. Needless to say, the session was intense. He prescribed sedatives and scheduled another appointment for Thursday. We discussed my anger, my sense of betrayal, my loss of masculinity, and my fear of the future. I explained that I was terrified of the unknown. Just last week, I felt complete. I had plans and goals, and a partner to face challenges with. Now, I am adrift, without direction or purpose. He began explaining the why I sought. It's not a single question, but a series of questions that delve into motivation. He suggested I calmly ask Jessica what within herself allowed her to betray me. There were several follow-up questions, but this one stood out the most. I told him about the sex, and he advised setting clear boundaries regarding our physical relationship. Ultimately, he recommended against continuing it, as it would only complicate things unless reconciliation was my goal. I cried. I raged. I left exhausted. Jessica was still outside waiting. I walked past her without responding to her pleas. I got a call from the doctor's office to get tested and went to the appointment. I gave a brief explanation to the doctor, who advised me to stop drinking and use the sedatives cautiously. I returned home and began boxing up my belongings. I decided it was time to move out. I called work and arranged a face-to-face meeting. The thought of working or focusing on life and death issues was impossible in my current state. I met with the administrative team at the hospital and formally submitted my 6 weeks resignation. My job is highly specialized, and 6 weeks is the minimum courtesy. I explained that my wife's actions had created a stressful home environment, and I would be a liability to patients, the team, and myself if I stayed. I decided to move far away. I got home after picking up some groceries. It had been about a week since I had eaten more than a few bites of food, surviving mostly on liquor. Following my therapist's and doctor's advice, I decided to cook something and stop drinking. Jessica was home, sitting in the dim living room, drinking wine. She had organized the pictures and was looking through them. She had put on makeup and was wearing a dress she usually reserved for special nights out. Her makeup was smudged from crying. She got up and tried to hug me. I gently pushed her away and made a show of pulling out my phone and hitting record. She started crying again. She told me that the affair partner's wife had called her, revealing that he had been involved with other women as well. She admitted that she felt like a complete fool and that every derogatory name I had called her was justified. She begged me to reconsider us. I responded by asking why I should bother when she hadn't considered us before betraying me. I told her I was sorry that her lies had caught up with her, but I felt she was only sorry she got caught, not remorseful for what she did to me. I said she seemed more upset about having to start over than about losing any love she had for me. I told her she had abandoned her love for me 2 years ago when she decided to do this. I kept piling on, informing her of my call to corporate compliance and the specific rules she had broken. I didn't raise my voice or act angry, though I was shaking a bit. It felt like everything was leaving me in a rush. I felt both elated and incredibly low at the same time, and empty when I was done. I put away the few groceries I had bought, made a small sandwich, and then went to bed. She was there again. I pulled out my phone and told her, with the recorder going, what my therapist had said about sex. Keep in mind, in 17 years, I can't recall a time when I've refused her. I asked her to leave and sleep in the guest bedroom. She refused. I said fine, I would then. Wednesday, 6 days after D-Day. I woke up to find Jessica curled up next to me. I quietly got up and did some light exercises. I've been working on my resume and sending out applications. I might be working in Seattle by the end of the year. I love my parents and will miss being 20 minutes away from them, especially as they are getting older. But I can't stay in this city. The thought of running into her after this is over is unbearable. I want to be free with no reminders of my loss and lifetime of compromise. It was a dreary day, raining off and on. I met up with my best friend for an early dinner and gave him the rundown. We decided not to drink. My attorney assured me that moving away wouldn't affect the financial outcome. I plan to live off my PTO until the end of October and use my half of our liquid savings to relocate and settle. I feel empty, and though I tried to laugh at my friend's jokes, it was an effort. I keep finding myself sinking into a deep void. I've never thought about ending my own life, but for the past few days, I've had daydreams about what it would be like if I weren't here. I will tell my therapist tomorrow. Jessica has been going to the library, I've been watching through Google, and reading relationship books. I've been reading Chump Lady, which has been great. She got a call from work and has a meeting tomorrow despite claiming to be sick. She was in bed again, just like the past few nights. I am so conflicted. I want to feel something, but all I feel is hate and resentment for her. And the only sex I want is sadistic. I'll admit that during the rough sex on Monday, I felt a kind of high, but it was followed by a crash, and the next day I was angry at myself. I'm doubting myself slightly about not wanting her back. I know she messed up big time, but I don't know if I can forget or forgive it. I'm a tangled mess. I laid out the ground rules for sex, with my phone recording. I told her it did not indicate reconciliation or some covert signal that I wanted that. I explained that this is probably hysterical bonding and not healthy. I told her I wouldn't be gentle or care about her feelings or needs during it. She teared up and nodded understandingly. She quietly said that she deserved it. Then she rolled over and got on all fours. Thursday, 7 days after D-Day. I woke up with Jessica spooning me. I laid there for a while, feeling her breath change, and sensed her eyes on me. Without turning around, I asked what her meeting was about. She said it was with HR, and likely wouldn't be good. I replied, "Yup." She asked what she could do to make things right between us. I said, "Nothing." She suggested an open marriage where I could see other people, but she wouldn't. I chuckled and said, "No, I don't trust you." She admitted that was fair. We had this conversation with my back to her. It was easier than looking at her. Seeing her face just made me mad. I asked what I did in this marriage that made her so unhappy she did this. She said I was beyond great. I chuckled again. Well, obviously that doesn't matter. She said it was the thrill, the adventure, the rush. She didn't realize until it was too late that getting caught would hurt everyone. She said it was a relief and unforgettable pain when I confronted her. I got up and made breakfast for both of us. I went to my therapist and discussed my plans for work and the responses I had already received to my applications. I told him everything about Jessica and the sex. We discussed my suicidal thoughts and talked about the process involved with them. He wasn't judging. He just wanted me to understand and process everything. It was only a 55-minute session, and I felt that weird calm again. Like nothing matters for now. Everything just is. When I got home, she was sitting in the living room. She told me she had been fired for breaching client confidentiality and data security protocols. I said, "Well, that's too bad." I exercised and made a nice dinner. She joined me. We didn't say much. While sitting in the living room, she told me the affair partner had been fired as well. I said, "Good." She told me she had had no contact with him for 5 days. I asked, "Why not? You're both free now. You could fly out to your soulmate and have all the fun you want." She said I was the only one she wanted. I said, "No, you had me, all of me, and it still wasn't enough." I told her that in nearly 20 years of work in our relationship, I had been approached and hit on more times than I could count, yet I managed to stay faithful. Now I am bitter and angry because of the compromises I made. She asked what compromises. I told her about wanting to go to medical school but deciding to get married and be stable instead, and about not wanting children, but because they were part of her, I accepted them and compromised. I said I made those compromises for our love, but obviously, I had misplaced my trust and love in her. I told her if I could go back in time, I would tell my 26-year-old self to pass her up. She asked again what she could do to bring us back together. I told her I will never compromise for her again, and that means we can't have a healthy relationship. I told her I will never love her again, and at best, I would treat her like a sex toy. Otherwise, she wouldn't factor into my plans or thoughts. I told her that just a week ago, she was the first person I thought of when I woke up, and the last person I thought about when I went to sleep. Now it hurts too much to think about her. I'm going to walk away from this. I feel like it's starting to constantly remind me of things. I cannot thank those kind people enough who I chatted with, and who shared their pain and stories that helped me. This has been, on the whole, a good thing for me to do, but I keep replaying things and feelings I'd rather just walk away from. I remain confused about what I want. I don't know if I will ever be 100% sure about anything with her again. I have bi-weekly appointments for the next 4 weeks with my therapist. Wednesday, 6 days after D-Day. I woke up with Jessica curled up next to me. I quietly got up and did some light exercises. I've been working on my resume and sending out applications. I might be working in Seattle by the end of the year. I love my parents and will miss being 20 minutes away from them, especially as they are getting older. But I can't stay in this city. The thought of running into her after this is over is unbearable. I want to be free with no reminders of my loss and lifetime of compromise. It was a dreary day, raining off and on. I met up with my best friend for an early dinner and gave him the rundown. We decided not to drink. My attorney assured me that moving away wouldn't affect the financial outcome. I plan to live off my PTO until the end of October and use my half of our liquid savings to relocate and settle. I feel empty, and though I tried to laugh at my friend's jokes, it was an effort. I keep finding myself sinking into a deep void. I found myself sinking into a deep emptiness with an overwhelming pull. I have never seriously considered ending my life, but lately, I've had daydreams about what it would be like if I were no longer here. I plan to tell my therapist tomorrow. Jessica has been going to the library. I've been tracking her through Google and reading relationship books. I've been reading Chump Lady, which has been a great resource. She received a call from work, and I eavesdropped on part of it. I know she has a meeting tomorrow despite claiming to be sick. She was in bed again, just like the past few nights. I am so conflicted. I want to feel something, but all I feel is hate and resentment for her. The only sex I want is sadistic. I'll admit that during the rough sex we had on Monday, I felt almost a runner's high. But then I crashed and felt angry at myself the next day. I'm doubting myself a little about not wanting her back. I know she messed up badly, but I don't know if I can forget or forgive it. I am a tangled mess. I laid out the ground rules for sex with my phone recording. I told her this did not indicate reconciliation or any covert signal that I wanted that. I explained that this was probably hysterical bonding and not healthy. I told her I wouldn't be gentle or care about her feelings or needs during it. She teared up and nodded in understanding. She quietly said that she deserved it. Then she rolled over and got on all fours. Thursday, 7 days after D-Day. I woke up with Jessica spooning me. I laid there for a while, feeling her breath change, and sensed her eyes on me. Without turning around, I asked what her meeting was about. She said it was with HR and likely wouldn't be good. I replied, "Yup." She asked what she could do to make things right between us. I said, "Nothing." She suggested an open marriage where I could see other people, but she wouldn't. I chuckled and said, "No, I don't trust you." She admitted that was fair. We had this conversation with my back to her. It was easier than looking at her. Seeing her face just made me mad. I asked what I did in this marriage that made her so unhappy she did this. She said I was beyond great. I chuckled again. Well, obviously that doesn't matter. She said it was the thrill, the adventure, the rush. She didn't realize until it was too late that getting caught would hurt everyone. She said it was a relief and unforgettable pain when I confronted her. I got up and made breakfast for both of us. I went to my therapist and discussed my plans for work and the responses I had already received to my applications. I told him everything about Jessica and the sex. We discussed my suicidal thoughts and the process involved with them. He wasn't judging. He just wanted me to understand and process everything. It was only a 55-minute session, and I felt that weird calm again. Like nothing matters for now. Everything just is. When I got home, she was sitting in the living room. She told me she had been fired for breaching client confidentiality and data security protocols. I said, "Well, that's too bad." I exercised and made a nice dinner. She joined me. We didn't say much. While sitting in the living room, she told me the affair partner had been fired as well. I said, "Good." She told me she had had no contact with him for 5 days. I asked, "Why not? You're both free now. You could fly out to your soulmate and have all the fun you want." She said I was the only one she wanted. I said, "No, you had me, all of me, and it still wasn't enough." I told her that in nearly 20 years of work and our relationship, I had been approached and hit on more times than I could count, yet I managed to stay faithful. Now, I am bitter and angry because of the compromises I made. She asked what compromises. I told her about how I had dreams of going to medical school, but chose to marry and create a stable life instead. I never wanted children, but because they were part of her, I accepted them and compromised. I made those sacrifices for our love, but clearly, I misplaced my trust and affection. I told her if I could go back, I'd advise my younger self to walk away from her. She asked again if there was anything she could do to fix things. I told her I would never compromise for her again, and that meant we couldn't have a healthy relationship. I told her I would never love her again, and that at best, I would treat her like a stranger. Otherwise, she wouldn't factor into my plans or thoughts. Just a week ago, she was the first person I thought of in the morning, and the last at night. Now, it hurts too much to even think about her. I need to walk away from this. It's constantly dragging me back into painful memories. Sharing my story has been helpful, but I keep replaying events and emotions I need to leave behind. I'm unsure of what I want. I don't know if I'll ever be certain about anything with her again. I have bi-weekly therapy appointments for the next month. Update. It's been an eventful 5 weeks. I've uncovered more. I moved out about 3 days after my last update. Jessica continually texts and leaves notes on my apartment door and car. I told my lawyer, who suggested sending a cease and desist letter. I'm considering it. My therapist has praised my progress and believes I can manage the anger, despair, and depression I initially felt. I agree. Jessica and I had sex one last time the night before I moved out. I reiterated that it meant nothing and wouldn't change my mind about reconciliation. She claimed to understand, but her constant attempts to communicate suggest otherwise. She was served notice of the divorce petition the first week of October. The love bombing and attempts to win me back have been relentless. The earliest hearing is likely in January. If she cooperates, it will be quick. If she fights, so be it. She got another job about a week after being fired. It's all about connections. Anyway, I'm in a better place. I've accepted her flaws as a person and as a spouse. I told her I'd never forgive her. I just accept what happened and move forward. I had 2 unexpected visits over the last 3 weeks. My stepdaughters came to see me. I told them that if their mother had put them up to it, they didn't need to bother. My oldest insisted. They had a long talk with their mother about the affair and our relationship. My oldest stepdaughter had always been resentful toward me. She apologized, admitting her assumptions about me were wrong. When Jessica and I started dating, there was overlap with her previous on and off boyfriend. Before we met, Jessica was in an on and off relationship with a man my stepdaughters hadn't met. Jessica's first husband had cheated on her, and they tried to reconcile for about a year before she had a revenge affair. The on and off guy came into the picture then. My stepdaughters thought I was that guy. Their father had always criticized their mother for cheating, but never admitted he had cheated too. So, my oldest stepdaughter apologized for her behavior, realizing her misconceptions. That was a tough weekend. This whole situation has shown the far-reaching impacts of infidelity and dishonesty. I want to address the accusations regarding the sex my soon-to-be ex-wife requested while I was preparing to leave. Jessica has always been into BDSM, which I never really enjoyed. The point is, I didn't provide aftercare for her. I even took classes and attended workshops on being a dom to make her happy. I'm done making her happy. She lost that privilege along with my respect, which is pretty much the death knell for a marriage. The second surprise came from a longtime coworker from another department. I decided to stay on as a PRN worker, as needed / part-time. Well, things have taken an interesting turn. She found out about my pending divorce and all the hospital gossip. I've started wearing my wedding ring on a chain now. After insisting on taking me out for a drink, I told her I wouldn't be around much longer and had zero interest in any type of relationship. She just smiled, squeezed my hand, and said she had no intention of a long-term relationship. She just wanted to have some fun with me. She's been spending the night a couple of times a week, and it's something I've enjoyed. She even helped me pack my carry-on and dropped me off and picked me up at the airport for my interview in Seattle. I crushed that interview. I also got a call from a travel agency with numerous opportunities. I kind of like the idea of taking on a travel gig and crashing at my parents' place between contracts. I'm not sure what I want to do yet. It's oddly terrifying and liberating to not be responsible for anyone else. My lawyer said there would be no alimony or spousal support. She also mentioned that since it's a no-fault state, infidelity doesn't impact the divorce itself. However, proof of infidelity can influence the division of assets, possibly swinging up to 70/30ths in my favor. Selling the house is inevitable. I asked a realtor to run comps, and it will be a substantial amount. Not enough to make up for 17 years down the drain, but I'm contemplating a 3-month European tour. I'm starting to feel again, and it's been mostly positive. I'm not in the best place, but definitely not as bad as I could be. What would you do in my shoes? Could you ever find it in your heart to forgive such a betrayal, or would you walk away and start anew? Share your stories, advice, and opinions below, because in the end, we're all in this together, seeking understanding and healing.